Hello, I'm Beryl Dakers. Welcome to Palmetto Scene. Artist Fletcher Williams is no stranger to challenging the political landscapes of his native Charleston. He recently invaded the historic Aiken Red House with his exhibit Promised Land, which questions the American dream. For whom was it meant? And how and where do Black people fit into that dream scenario?
Grass is greener on the other side idea, and I'm always thinking of white picket fence. So I imagine that as this promised land. People's, I guess, pursuit of the good life, the perfect life, one of like just basic comfort, safety, privacy, if you want. You're definitely confronted with this work and these ideas and like what they mean to you and how much ownership you take of them and how much they're available to other people, like your space and your privilege. I think that's what is kind of teased out in this exhibition. You wouldn't be confronted with race, I don't think, immediately. I think the conversation could always get there. But as soon as you bring it into this space in the American dream, it's unavoidable. I've always been interested in architecture, historic buildings, and then for some reason the picket fence and the idea of American dream, and then when I'm out here exploring these rural areas and thinking about what it took for Black people to survive when they don't have a place to learn, they don't have a place to perform their own music, a place to shop for their own food. I mean, you got to be creative, you got to adapt. I'm like, so what did the American dream look like? And I was like, well, what's this picket fence all about? Taking ownership of those ideas that weren't intended to be taken ownership by Black people. So I think the white picket fence is that. It really got me interested. I've seen the white picket fence not even surrounding some of the most beautiful homes. I've seen it in, yards that aren't even maintained. I mean, I've seen the picket fences attached to wire fences. I've seen picket fences that are a foot tall, picket fences that are falling over. I mean, so everybody wants to express that they have some kind of relationship with what this country was intended to offer most people. And so I find it really interesting to just use that object in my work. To bring this object into a space that was, void of the American dream for Black people. I thought it would be an interesting conversation to have because this is essentially a prison. I mean, as grand as it is, I'm not really, you're impressed by the grandiosity of it, but then you remember, well, this was built by the people that are housed in those small quarters in the back and all the wealth amassed from that allowed you to create this archetype of power. But also then going back to the fence and then also looking at these brick walls that surround this, we're talking about fear and control and power. And as ornamental and pretty as even a white picket fence is, we're still talking about dividing space. We're still putting space between you and another person. Even when listening to the audio tour bit at first, I was like, well, this is it's a little joyful. I think there's been some reinterpretation over the years of bringing the Black experience. I think people can still avoid that. When you bring artwork in here to then kind of disrupt the space and confront viewers, there's a different level of engagement that's not happening on a day-to-day basis in these houses. When I moved back in 2013, I got this job at a hotel, which was a really weird space, kind of like those old racial politics at play. My title was houseman. And then you had, the young white woman who worked front desk, and you had all kind of the back of house people who were, Black women 2-3 times my age doing laundry. I was just like, this feels like somewhat of a plantation here. I also drove the shuttle. So I was transporting guests to and from Market Street downtown. And during those trips, I'm I'm educating myself on the history of the city because we're going past all the cathedrals, like some important buildings, like I'm directing them to certain restaurants because they're coming down here for Southern food and Black culture. And I also started to interact more with the kids who make roses. they're the stewards of that craft. I mean, they know the craft and it's a way to make money. Um, and they're really good at it. I mean, to whittle that thing that quickly and then they carry around this palm under their arm. I was really impressed. Just appreciating the craft behind it and kind of the whole ecosystem around, the whole economy around palm and roses. And then the kind of the folklore behind that, symbol of everlasting love dating back to the Civil War. I don't know if anyone really has confirmation of that, but it's certainly embedded in the object, in the rose. So when I started seeing signs that called them roaming peddlers, I'm just like, it's a bit insidious. And especially when you have tourists who come here, who's going to take the time to discern between someone who's a part of a program and someone who isn't? That's asking a lot of people who come here. So essentially, they're just going to take the easy route. We're just not going to buy from any of them because they're probably all criminals. And so I thought it was absolutely important to then kind of revise that language, which of course I don't believe the city adopted. But just to, I present them as artisans, and they have the right to be here and create and sell in these places, which for Charleston is absolutely useful to tourism. I mean, this is something that people take away with them. These are one of the few items. There's a lot of things you can take with you. I mean, you may have your receipt from a restaurant or your pass from taking a water tour, but your interaction with black people, and you take away a rose that grew from a palmetto tree here. There's just so much symbolism embedded in that. It's so meaningful. And so I didn't think they had the support that they should have from the city for being such huge contributors. I mean, black people have never been the sole beneficiaries of their contributions to America. And we're going to see that being played out in this city where we're celebrated for tourism and the beauty and the history. No, I can't. We gotta do something about that. They're the women who sold wildflowers down at Broad Street. There's a story about the Peanut Man who was kind of pushed out too, but the city mobilized behind him, and then of course the city retracted their statements and allowed this person to come back. And there's no reason that if we are aware of history and we don't want history to repeat itself, why are we then criminalizing these kids, these black kids, for selling roses? Charleston always takes like these little tokens of black culture, like holds them tight and cherish them. But I think there's a way for me to take something like that, subvert it, and use the beauty of it, the allure of it, and then draw people into issues that I think Charleston still hasn't grappled with yet. There was a lot of crime and I think misrepresentation of black people too. So I started doing these drawings that were quite, I guess, graphic of certain shootings. I would use kind of like historical motifs in the drawings. But I knew that people would see the rose from afar. The frames were very ornate, and so I would capture their attention that way and then bring them into this imagery that wasn't so beautiful. And that's been kind of my strategy, a bit of subversion in response to like the Charleston landscape, the traditionalism of it. A lot of my work is very symbolic, very metaphorical, but that piece in particular, which I consider a rose shroud, was being made. I kind of conceived that idea around the same time of Emmanuel and Walter Scott too. So I've always been kind of compelled to create work that memorialized black people. And so I use the palmetto fronds, the leaves, as the base of it, and then I wove 3,000 roses into it. I wanted to really represent the low country landscape, whether it be a walking path through the center of it or the waterway, but definitely evoke South Carolina. Well, this lays on top of then 10 sheets, which are from a freedman's cottage, which for me are very figurative. They just look, the scale, just the size and the orientation of them look like bodies to me. And so I then kind of, in this procession, laid the shroud on top of these, which then lays on a base that's inverted picket fence. And then we kind of tie the idea of American dream and then kind of the history of that. So it's all kind of packed into this one piece. I'm always in the back of my mind looking for a way to push the craft and always looking for new ways to utilize it and kind of bring it into this larger art canon. Because you typically see just the rose, independent of anything else. It's not used in a larger piece of work, but to apply it, to use it as social critique is not very common. So that's really packed into that piece that started in a moment where I was really reflecting on, again, a very traumatic time in Charleston's history. I don't even try to control it. I know this stuff is going to bubble to the surface when I'm composing different sculptures. My work always seems to fall in place because I'm constantly letting my environment inform me, which of course is Black history, American history, and kind of the challenges embedded within that, the creativity and the adaptation of people to survive here. So there's a bit of mortality always embedded in the work. Well, I guess the shroud piece has significance now. The 9 bouquets of roses, the picket fence. I mean, and also this stuff has just not been challenged in a long time. So it just makes sense. I mean, it's not that difficult. If you put this stuff in your work, the conversation immediately starts. And that's kind of where we're at. This is a good time to have an exhibition that, speaks about race and politics and how we write history, how we revise history, how we interact with history, how we preserve history. I kind of struggle with it sometimes of not wanting my work or just me being a Black artist to be protest, but that's just the nature of it. That's just always going to be a part of my conversation, and I understand that. And so, yeah, these spaces and putting this work out here and, having civic engagement in mind is important and is a part of the work. And coming into spaces like this, we can keep the conversation going and give people a point of entry into the conversation through art is incredibly useful. So Black artists, art and activism are one and the same. It's unavoidable, and you have to embrace it.
It started with a business that provides affordable housing for low-income households. Under the train trestle on Rosewood Drive in Columbia, there's now a mural that is turning a lot of heads. Realty Haven wanted their new location to be a beacon of light during these troubled times, but opposition forced them to rethink their approach.
I had a nightmare when I was a little kid, and my mom knew that I liked to draw a lot, so she asked me to draw what was in my nightmare. She had me bring it to the fireplace and lit the fire, and I threw it in there, and I never had that nightmare again. So ever since then, I guess it just stuck in my head, and I'm obsessed with it.
Realty Haven is actually a real estate brokerage firm. We originally started as an operations company for large-scale investors. So we would help them acquire single-family homes and turn them into rental properties. As of lately, we have just pivoted our model to go towards starting a nonprofit, which is Haven Home, that we can also buy single-family homes and turn them into rentals, but we want to offer them at affordable levels because of the inflation that we've seen in the market. So the mural on the outside of the building ties into everything that we do here. It was really intended to be a light in kind of dark times, and we wanted to be able to show our love for all of the people that make up our communities and love for people that have made impacts on our individual lives as well.
Right now I'm working on my grandfather. They retired him as a brigadier general. He's actually the son of Emily Douglas, who they named the park after. And he became the postmaster of Columbia, retired as Grand Billy, loved and adored by the entire community. I haven't seen any representations of South Carolina, or many of the South for that matter, that ring true to the way I see it. People don't realize how culturally diverse it is down here. When I go up north and I go to different cities, unless you're in a large city, it's predominantly white. I miss Black people and Latino culture, and I miss all this stuff when I'm on the road.
I really love the idea of portraits. We had gone down to Wynwood Walls and kind of fell in love with that in Miami, the art scene down there. And McClellan's art that we had seen samples of was really something that I connected with.
What I decided to do was make the mural match the sunset and the sunrise. I bring in the crew. We strip the walls down, prime it, and then we start with the mural work. We decided to put the black people up first. Right now, it's so charged and they seem to be needing representation.
McClellan had been talking to me about what he wanted to do, and he was saying that he thought this was a big thing for the city, but also too for the area, Rosewood area. And I thought to myself, he's right about that. I do believe this piece turns a lot of heads. McClellan chose to use some really bright colors, catches people's eyes. He's also chose to use different individuals. He used me to start the whole thing off. I mean, hey, and I'm wearing a black hat. I'm looking like a superhero on the side of a wall, but also too, everybody else who's on the wall looks like a superhero.
I had a feeling, it might trigger somebody, and I had a bunch of people drive by and they thought it was George Floyd. I mean, it's sad, but just putting a black person on a wall has become so charged that somebody decided to deface it and put something really terrible on it.
Honestly, it didn't surprise me.
Black Lives Matter!
The time in which the mural first began definitely was in the heat of the moment where everything was taking place around the country and actually around the world. And though the Rosewood area is definitely an area that's progressive, I just still expected it to happen because the tensions are very high right now. You do your best to navigate it, and in some cases, you have to face it head on. You find ways to help you and assist you in dealing with these things, and it's definitely not an easy issue to deal with, and it's definitely not an issue that's going to be going away anytime soon.
I've had a couple people drive by and, yell, "Make America Great Again" and stuff like that. Whatever your political views, it's weird to me that this something that's meant to be inclusive can be seen by some people to be such a divisive act.
That pretty much set everything in motion for all the attention that the work needed. So they unknowingly did something positive for this project.
Feels great. It's satisfying, to say the least.
We've had a lot of really great outlove and support from everybody that's here. People coming by, taking photos with the artwork, leaving us wonderful messages on social media.
This was a lot more important than even I had, originally thought, and so we decided to make sure that everybody's represented.
And I thought acknowledging the Native Americans, especially in their home state, would be very impactful. And the Catawba tribe is the only recognized tribe in the state of South Carolina. And John George was their last living medicine man who just passed away this year. And so we wanted to get that as a tribute to them.
It's basically been a mishmash of what looks good and also adds to the diversity of the mural.
So every time we drive past the building, it's a reminder of how blessed we are and how far we've come from Luna's condition.
2 days after her second birthday, she had an arteriovenous malformation that ruptured.
Essentially, she just had a stroke and lost the use of her right side.
And we were in the hospital for 11 weeks. She went through 3 brain surgeries, and she's just such a miracle.
Now she's about 2.5, and she's already regained the use of her right side. She's walking, she's moving her arm, she's talking again.
Every time we drive by, she says, "It's me, Luna." And it's just the cutest thing ever. I hope in the future she can bring her kids to see it one day.
Seeing my mom's picture on the side of the building was humbling, to say the least. And if you knew the background of my mother and all that she's gone through to be who she is today, you wouldn't be surprised that she's on the building as well. Where do we even begin? So somebody who lost her parents when she was 9 and then came here because of the Korean War and all the pain that she's gone through and some of the experiences that she's gone through and losing family to the North Korean side. And if you met her today, you'd realize, that's a really strong woman inside of a tiny, humble, meek shell. Yet the strong woman is representing a lot of people inside of the building. I mean, there's a pretty large ethnic community here. And so I think representation certainly does help and help acknowledge that they're here and they're making an impact in the community as well.
I mean, people just stop by every day and, they tell me, we thank you so much, but I'm just like, I'm just trying to make something pretty for everybody, but I didn't expect it to be such an event. I mean, I think it's something that we needed. People are having a really hard time. If I can do something to brighten up their day, it's special.
In tonight's segment of Women Vision 2020, we feature Ann Timberlake. As a founding member of the Sierra Club in South Carolina, she helped lead numerous environmental campaigns, among them establishing the Congaree National Park and the Kilmer Slick Rock Wilderness. She also advocated for having the Chattooga River designated a wild and scenic river.
16 feet.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
That's a nice one. Mm-hmm.
Where I really kind of get my energy to recharge is going back into the natural world. And they talk about really the healing experience of being surrounded by the trees, by the, I think you hear things. You realize the sound of silence. The sound of you hear the birds. You hear, I think your senses. I think you sharpen your senses when you get out, and you sort of breathe deep.
Ann Timberlake has been advocating for environmental conservation for most of her life. She grew up in Columbia and graduated from Newcomb College of Tulane University.
And I graduated in 1968, which was a year of turbulence, but I came back and I sort of regret in some ways that I didn't take up civil rights or the war. I came back wanting to save trees. I was an environmental radical, and so I had the good fortune to work with a team of pretty much young people like myself to save the Congaree Swamp.
As founding member of the Sierra Club in South Carolina, she helped lead campaigns to establish the Congaree as a national park.
I think we need those wild places. We need, it even relates to history, and I majored in history, and I can remember, trying to understand how did the, early explorers ride through the forest? I mean, your typical drive along the highway, it's hard to see with the brambles and the understory, but yet when you walked in Congaree, you could see how that was possible. It was a towering overstory of trees, and it was where nature ruled. I mean, the flooding, the natural flooding deposited the rich soils, and that fed the amazing diversity of trees and wildlife. There was nothing like it. I mean, it wasn't that uncommon in the southeast. It's a Red River bottomland swamp. Every major river had such an ecosystem, but all of those lands had been cleared and drained and or dammed up, and so there were no other places like it.
It was in the 1970s that she advocated for the Chattooga River to be designated as a wild and scenic river. This 50-mile stretch of river starts in the mountains of North Carolina and ends at Lake Tougaloo near the Georgia border, one of the longest rivers in the southeast.
The Chattooga was proposed by the Forest Service as a potential, to be included in that designation. So there were hearings, and we testified, shared, asked people to write letters. I mean, it was very early advocacy, grassroots, basic advocacy with, without email and, social media. But we wrote letters and we signed petitions and we showed up.
In 2003, Ann Timberlake became the founding executive director of the Conservation Voters of South Carolina. She managed a small staff, growing the budget from $60,000 to $600,000.
And in the beginning, it was just myself, and then I hired one person, and then 2-3 people. And it was in 2009, so we've been going about 6 years, and we had We had become more prominent at the state legislature. We advocated, and what set us apart from our partner organizations was that Conservation Voters also had a political arm, and we endorsed candidates and we helped elect candidates, Republicans and Democrats, based on their commitment and their record.
And what would your advice be for a young woman today?
Well, I think it's important to find your voice and to speak out where you're comfortable. I do think, I'm known as an advocate, but I think it's important for us just to share in conversation with people the things we care about. And I worry that conversations about politics are almost becoming taboo. It's almost like not polite to bring up those issues. And I think we need to have conversations, respectful conversations. I don't know how we find common ground if we don't have those.
For more stories about our state and more details on the stories you've just seen, please visit our website at palmettoscene.org. And of course, don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at SCETV, #Palmetto Scene. We leave you now with tonight's Palmetto postcard and a visit to Eudora Farms in Sally, South Carolina. For Palmetto Scene, I'm Beryl Dakers. Good night, stay strong, and thanks for watching.
Hey, I'm Mark. Welcome to Eudora Farms. My family, we live here at Eudora Farms, and we've been here about 25 years with the intention that maybe at some day we could do an actual drive-through. So many people have come over the last 4 or 5 months. It's been tremendous. A lot of people like being up close to see and smell, and I think that really helps them to want to go back and learn more about them. So this does give people an opportunity to stay in their vehicle with their family, kids. They can roll the windows down and feed them. A lot of people don't buy feed, they just want to enjoy the experience and see the animals as they go through. When they come back through, we have our giraffe exhibit set up, and so he's usually out, Elliot there, so they get an opportunity to see him and to really see him from a ground level. It's a really fun experience for people, and it's something everybody can do together.